Hey friends, Liz here to invite you to check out our Patreon. That's where we publish extra episodes every other week, and that's also where we will continue any series we're reading. So if you liked our coverage of ACOTAR, Guild, High Mountain Court, or Fourth Wing, check out our Patreon to continue those series along with us. We also let you know what we're reading each month in advance in case you want to read along with us too. There might be a few other surprises throughout the year for our patrons as well. You can get all of this for just $3 a month, so check it out and we would really appreciate the support. Anyway, on to today's episode.
Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
So Liz, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Earth Boys Are Easy by Rochelle. This was published in 2024, and it is the first in a series currently with 2 books in it, the Villains in Space series. This is part of a larger universe of books, the Villainous Things series. That is, in the start of this book, it tells you that this is kind of an offshoot. It references characters from that other series, but you don't have to have read that other series to follow this one. Case in point, we didn't read that other series, and
No.
I'm not missing anything.
No.
This book is 490 pages long, and that's a longie, but it doesn't feel like it, so don't worry about it.
Not at all. It reads very fast. Case in point, we were going to split this into three parts because it is a longie, and that's usually what we do. But it's so plot light that we're gonna put it into 2.
We're gonna make it into 2. So the cover, speaking of it being plot light, this is very much one of those books that, like, we all judge books by covers. I'm not going to pretend. And you know what you're here for. There's not a lot of plot. There's a lot of spice. There's not a lot of plot.
Yeah.
The cover that I prefer is illustrated, very cartoony. It looks like an animated movie poster. Honestly, like, I could see this be a animated show. And you have our 2 main characters, Ziggy and Micah, who we will meet. One is looking adoringly at the other, so you know it's a gay romance right away. He's in a spacesuit, and you get the whole space vibe. There's like rainbow buildings in the background. It's very gay right off the bat. And I'm here for it. The other cover I hate. It's just the torso of a man in like purple lighting. And you know how we feel about real people on covers. I don't mind the animated character real people, though.
So I think this is the first time that we differ on cover appearances, because I prefer the one with the real person on it.
That's so funny. I mean, yeah, I don't like it.
I don't mind either of them. They're fine. They're both
fine.
Terrible. Like, they're both terrible in their own way. Like, I say terrible in like kind of the jokey sense. I don't mean that like they're actually terrible, but between 2 really camp things, I think I like the one that's like just totally boy go-go dancer in pink.
That's fair. I see what you're saying. And they are, I fully agree with that. They're both terrible. What I can't unsee is on the cartoon cover, there's a building in the back that's pink, and it just looks like a dick, which I know was intentional.
Fully just a dick building. Like a la the original cover of The Little Mermaid.
Yep, with fully just a dick.
The dicks in the background.
The dicks on the Atlantis castle.
Yeah, very much.
So there's a lot in the start of this book that I really want to talk about before we even get into the plot. So I'm going to turn it back over to you to kick us off.
Okay, so standard disclaimer. This is part 1 of 2. And so we're only going to cover chapters 1 through 21 in this part. And then in 2 weeks, we'll finish the book with part 2. And then that's when we're going to do our rating. So before we get into it, this is on Kindle Unlimited. So that's awesome for those of you trying to make Amazon lose money. And like Liz mentioned, good Lord, do we get far too much upfront before we even get into this novel. Like we've read something by C. Rochelle before. It was the Song of Saints and Swans book. And she had this similar warning up front, which was the typo warning. Still interesting. Haven't used it. I would be interested to understand how that works. But the trigger warnings are so manic pixie dream girl that I really can't.
I hated this trigger list. It was just, it's like 8 pages of brain vomit of anything under the sun. Like, it's not even an appropriate trigger list because it's triggers and tropes. So it does the whole like daddy, baby girl thing, whatever. But then it also goes into just like weird fucking quotes for like, I can't even explain it until you've read it. And I hated it. In my notes, when I first turned the page, I said, wow, I appreciate all the content warnings. Actually, I lied. It's way too fucking much and I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's one thing. So it reminded me of, do you remember in high school, we used to have that notebook that we passed back and forth to write notes to each other? Yep. And I think at some point we started tracking our inside jokes in that notebook.
Yep.
That's what it reminded me of. It felt like a list of inside jokes for C. Rochelle, and whether it was her editor or her friends or whoever like helped her craft this thing, like that's who that list is for, because it's far too long to be meaningful. It's literally like 7 pages on my Kindle.
Yeah. And like, I don't need a trope list. Give me the trigger list, fine, but it's all intermixed. And that's a really good analogy. That's exactly how it reads. It's just a list of inside jokes. And I hated it. Like,
yeah.
Also, but there was one in particular that I wanted to talk about that caught my eye. I didn't quote it, so I don't know exactly how she says it, but I could find it. But she has one. I feel like I should find it because I'm gonna butcher it. So stand by. It will matter.
Yeah, no worries.
Maybe it won't, but I think it's it was an odd choice. Yeah, I think so. She has a whole section that's titled "Note on the Pet/Master Ownership Scene Involving a Black MC," with potential spoiler. Fine. So she gives this really long, it's 4 fucking pages, disclaimer about how in the universe that this book is in, slavery in the United States didn't exist the way we know it. We know that there's this sensitive parallel in talking about people, especially Black people, being slaves. One of our characters is Black and the other exists in a white presenting body. So their dynamic is equal usually, but then there's this one culture that has this pet versus master dynamic. And I'm not trying to discount slavery. And it goes on and on trying to argue like, hey, there's this scene that's kind of like slavery because one of them is Black, but don't worry about it. It's not slavery. And I'm not trying to discount slavery. Just don't worry about it at all.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like over apologizing. And it also kind of felt like that phrase, the don't kill your gays, right? Like, don't make the token gay character just to kill them. You have this whole slave disclaimer, but you still chose to make the character Black and then put a collar on him. Like,
yeah,
you still made that choice. So your apology feels weird to me. She over explains it. Like, it's like 6 pages where there's one paragraph that essentially encompasses it. And you could have just said that.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that I think that's probably the most feedback that I'm going to have for this book. And the disclaimer is included for that, which is like editing.
Yep. And I just wanted to talk about the thing because I was like, girl, you didn't have to say all this.
Yeah, you didn't have to go off. But I feel like that is this book. Like, this book just goes off.
It does. It goes off on so many tangents in so many ways.
Right. Which is, I think, one of the reasons why on the surface of it, this should be 3 parts, but like, girl, we read 225 pages and I got 5 pages of notes. Like, there is not a lot actually happening.
There's just simply not.
No.
So, my rant aside, I just thought it was a weird choice, but
thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Also, see, Rochelle, I appreciate the research you did. I was kind of into the pet dynamic. I think we just didn't have to give me 6 pages of explanation.
Yeah. That was something that you could have included with the tropes and just like left it there.
Yep.
There's also part of the beginning, and I don't remember if it's in the tropes or if it's in its own section, but it talks about the race that Ziggy is. So Ziggy's one of our main characters, and he's a Stellarian. And it's it calls out that Stellarians are genderless, so they are they thems, but some of them choose to inhabit forms that present as male or female. So most of the time they're going to be referred to as they them unless there is like a gender, and where I've referred to a gender, it's because they are referred to as a gender in the book. Just wanted to say that out loud.
That's a good disclaimer. And our lead Stellarian is in a male dominating body for as far as the book as I've read.
Yeah. At least bodies with penises.
Yeah. That's a better way to say that.
So we finally get started, and we start with Ziggy, as in Ziggy Stardust, as in, yes, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust. Literally, this alien body snatched David Bowie and has been using his meat suit as a vessel for many decades.
Okay, so I was a little like I had to suspend my disbelief, and I had to tell myself that he was just inspired by David Bowie and then found someone else, but like, no, he's just bopping around in David Bowie's meat suit.
Yeah, no, totally. And we don't get a whole lot of detail on why David Bowie is now ageless because he's being inhabited by an alien.
Well, I assume he's dead, because that's how his other skin suits work. Like, he kills the thing and then just keeps their skin and they don't age.
Cool. So he killed David Bowie.
But my question is, in this universe, David Bowie is David Bowie. And Ziggy explains like going to Earth and going to a Bowie concert and being like amazed by Ziggy Stardust. But then he continues to like bop around on Earth as David Bowie, and no one like, yo, Bowie, what are you doing on this farm?
Right. We don't get a whole lot of detail on like whether there was like a faked death situation or like how he got out of actually being David Bowie to be inhabiting David Bowie's body. But that's okay. With this I'm going to preface this right now by saying this story is plot and detail light.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what we came here for.
Nope.
Which is fine.
And I think we get what we came here for, so.
In spades. So like I mentioned, we start with Ziggy, and Ziggy is one of our main characters, and we alternate between his point of view and Micah's, who is our other point of view. And Micah is the person of color that warning was made about in the first part of the book that we ranted about for like 15 minutes. Anyway.
Sorry.
So as Liz mentioned earlier, this is a male-male romance, and we just jump right into it. So Ziggy is an alien that's made of essentially stardust and tentacles that regularly body snatch other beings so that he can walk around unnoticed. That's what these types of aliens tend to do. So he's on Earth for a specific mission from the Astrum Force Star Unit, which is the military arm of his home planet, Stellaria. This mission has already happened. So it happened before in one of the other books in the series that was adjacent, the Villainous Things one. And we get some details about that mission, but I'm not really going to go into it because it's not super important. But the gist of it is that mission failed because for a couple of reasons, Ziggy let his mark go. So he was sent to Earth to hunt this person down. And we find out that this mark ended up being one of Ziggy's parental Stellarians and then also mated with 2 different individuals. And so since that's so rare, the decision was made, let the person go. Cool.
That's all you need to know.
That's really all you need to know. But anyway, because we're on the backside of this mission, Ziggy's jonesing to go home, right? He wants to get the fuck out of Earth. He wants to go back and get back to normal life. And the only thing about the decision that really gives him pause is Micah. Micah is categorized as a soup, which is short for superhuman or superhero. And he and others like him have special abilities. So Micah's special ability is that he can manipulate inorganic matter at will, which is pretty fucking rad.
It's so rad. That is not a superpower that I am used to reading about. And it comes out in really cool ways. He's also like a super genius. He's a little nerd boy.
And that's one of the reasons that Ziggy's drawn to him, because Micah's very, very sharp and he can like actually understand a lot of the complex things that Ziggy's like armor and like technology and like advanced alien blah blah encounters, encourages, has around him. Anyway, they communicate very well about those things.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hand waving this because we don't get actually a lot of that detail.
Nope, we sure don't.
Yeah, which totally cool. Didn't really want it anyway.
There's a lot of hand wavy moments that I'm sure we're gonna get to. Like, just don't worry about it.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. But one thing I like about this book is that it's pretty obvious early on that both Ziggy and Micah are crazy for each other. Even if they're both in denial about how the other feels, the denial part gets a little bit, I have to like willfully suspend my disbelief, but it's fine.
It's one of those, it's straight up a miscommunication trope, but it doesn't bother me that much. It just gets a little tedious because we get a lot of their inner monologues, and for both of them, it's like, I love him, he doesn't love me. I love him, he doesn't love me, from both sides.
Yeah. There are a couple of things in this book, and I tend to treat information in a book like a logic puzzle. So like, I am told something, I take that at face value, and then it applies concretely for the rest of like my involvement in the book. But there's a couple of things in this book in particular that like modus operandi doesn't work, and them being crazy for each other and being in denial about it is one of them, because it's so obvious to me and anybody else, and they both flat out say it like multiple times that they want each other.
Yeah, like, okay, this is kind of jumping ahead, but Ziggy calls Micah his mate like 12 times, and Micah's like, it's just pillow talk. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You're dumb.
Anyway, Ziggy is packing to leave, and Micah comes waltzing into his room. It's clear that Micah is crestfallen that Ziggy is leaving, but he asks to mess with Ziggy's cube one last time. And we learn that this cube is some kind of super dangerous, like, multi-tool that Stellarian warriors never leave the house without. And Ziggy lets Micah mess with his because Micah can manipulate inorganic matter, and so he can make improvements and changes to the cube pretty quickly and easily. Mm-hmm. So when Micah gives the cube back to Ziggy, the air between them is heavy, and Ziggy can sense through his tentacles that Micah is horny as fuck. And Ziggy feels the same way, and so he presses Micah against the wall and kisses him, intending this to be like a goodbye gift to both of them. He's like, one and done. I have to go. I must go back to my people.
See you
goodbye
never.
Forever. You see you never. Lose my number.
Lose my number.
Ziggy feels attached to Micah, but he feels that they can't be together, and so he breaks the kiss and he uses his cube to teleport or star hop back to Stellaria. But to his surprise, Micah has teleported with him and is in Stellaria with him as well.
Surprise.
Surprise. So next we switch to Micah, who is way too manic pixie dream girl than I can handle. Like, Ziggy is a little bit like too much of giving us the asides in the prose, but Micah does this constantly. Mm-hmm.
Well, not only, we said this in the debrief, but in case we didn't keep it in, he talks like a Zoomer, and we find out he is a Zoomer, and it's just exhausting. I realize I sound like an old lady, but I hate it. It's just,
it feels a lot like interacting with an ad all the time. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it.
Because it's like if you picture a page in a book and you have the inner monologues like in italics, it's like every other line is his inner monologue, and it's just like, oh, space daddy, oh, he's unaliving me, oh, and I just like shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started skipping those, if I'm honest. And
Yeah.
I had to have like this internal talk with myself of like, you don't have to like this person. You can still enjoy the book. And here I am enjoying the book.
Exactly.
So Micah's there with Ziggy, and Ziggy freaks out that Micah's there. And Micah tells him, look, I tethered myself to your cube somehow because I'm like super techie. Don't ask for the details, reader. You won't get them.
But we're stuck here now.
We're stuck here now. Ziggy tells him to undo it immediately, and Micah lies and says that, well, it's going to take me some time. So Ziggy's like, fine, you have a week. We'll figure it out. In the immediate, though, Ziggy has to report back to HQ in Stellaria, so he puts Micah in cuffs, and they pretend that Micah is his prisoner in front of this council, which Micah's super into. Like, he wants to be the I'm your prisoner in a sexy way.
He's down with all of this.
Right. In front of this Astrum Force Council, we don't understand what's said because we see the whole thing through Micah's perspective and he doesn't speak Stellarian. Ziggy and his ilk are described as communicating through this like humming language, like very lyrical note kind of thing. Micah is all kinds of turned on about the idea of role-playing as Ziggy's prisoner, like I mentioned, and is only mildly cowed by the possibility of death should the council decide they wish it, which like is very cavalier.
Part of Micah that did entertain me and bothered me is he's rocking a boner through this entire book.
Yeah, like it just constantly hard all the time.
They will have just had sex and he's still hard.
Yeah.
But
The
he's
other
very
thing
chill.
about Micah that I decided was endearing was that he has no sense of self-preservation, or like he presents as like he should have a higher level of self-preservation, but like in reality I think he's just super confident in his own ability to defend himself.
Yeah, that was really endearing to me. And there's a couple scenes we get where he shows that, where he's like, I'm not just a weak human. Like, I know
Right.
I am a little bit of a twink boy, but like, I'm stronger than you think I am. Like, I'm fucking fine. Like, I can run fast. I'm super strong. I'm a soup. Like, you can't hurt me.
Right. Like just because we're role-playing here doesn't make it true in reality.
And I like those reminders. And that was super endearing to me. And I think you're right. It is
Yeah.
just confidence.
Yeah, and I like how that actually becomes kind of a central dynamic in their relationship because he kind of constantly has to remind Ziggy, like, I'm not breakable. I'm good. I got this. I can defend myself. You don't have to worry about me. I got it. You just go do your thing.
Yeah, I'm here to help.
Yeah. So in the end, it's clear that Ziggy explains that Micah could be an asset to the council, and so they decide not to kill him. He describes Micah's ability to manipulate inorganic matter and improve their cubes. With his tech prowess, he like demonstrates that that's what happened to his cube, and the council's like, yeah, that could be useful. We won't kill him today. Cool.
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. It's worth stating here that we find out, I think very soon after this, that Ziggy actually lied to the council and said that Micah was his mate. So we do encounter the concept of mates in this book. They're called two different things depending on who's talking about it, but Stellarians call it a star collision, and Micah's like superhuman people, they call it an inventus or an invectus. I
Or
forget which.
Invectus. Yeah, one of those.
In one of those. So this concept is out there, but it's the fated mate thing that you're all familiar with. So I got to ask, I know that you typically are against fated mates.
I usually do not like fated mates, and I don't know if I'm just getting soft in my old age, but this fated mate
Shut
thing
up.
it honestly didn't bother me. And I think, okay, this was a conversation I had with myself in this book because it didn't bother me. I think it's because we see it from both perspectives. So we know that they are both equally into the other, and it doesn't feel like that forced mating bond. That's the thing I don't like. Like, if you think back to Ruby Dixon and Ice Planet Barbarians, there's this like forced mating bond. Like, you now have to be together even if you don't like each other. I don't
Yeah.
like that. Like, you have no other choice. These two are so hopelessly obsessed with each other that I'm like, sure, fine, make them fated mates. I don't care. Whatever.
Right. Sure, cool. If you just want to add that layer in, doesn't bother me.
Exactly. So that's why I was like, whatever. I do want to say, speaking of Ruby Dixon, is Ziggy references a resonance in relation to Micah. And I had this like chicken and the egg question of like, I wonder whose resonance came first. C. Rochelle's or Ruby Dixon.
Yeah, I had that same thought because it is described very similar in nature and like functionality as the resonance that you see in Ice Planet Barbarians, because it's like an audible sound that other people can hear.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to resolve yet, because like Ziggy's obviously an alien where that happens, but Micah's not. So I'm interested to see what the resonance means.
I was wondering that too, because there's some interesting things that are happening that haven't been explicitly talked about in the book. But as we go, it seems to be happening more and more, where it's almost like they can read each other's minds or thoughts. Like, we know Ziggy can sense what Micah is feeling because of his tentacles. But there's a lot of instances where Micah seems to know exactly how Ziggy is feeling and doesn't really know why. Mm-hmm. And I was intrigued by that. I'm hoping that the resonance and kind of that thing comes to fruition and it's not hand wavy, because I think it is well woven into the development of like their relationship, how often that starts happening.
So back at Ziggy's house, Micah investigates everything that he can, and it's clear that Ziggy is just kind of following him around, but he's still worked up about the danger that Micah could have been in if the council meeting had gone differently. But Micah tells him, he never doubted Ziggy's ability to keep him safe. Inwardly, Ziggy admits to being more freaked out at the knowledge that he would have defied his command if they had tried to hurt Micah at all. And he's like, that's very unlike me. I don't people like that.
Yeah, I don't like people. I think that's the other thing that kind of got me on the fated mates in this one, is just the hopelessness that Ziggy feels in relation to like, I'm obsessed with this guy. Like, I will break all the rules. I will defy whoever. I don't know why, but this is mine. This is my human. And like everyone else can get away. It's very much the touch her and die vibes, the big mine energy. And I do love all of those things.
I do too. And I love you nailed it on the head right there. Like the hopelessness of it, where he's just like, I have no control over this. Thank you.
Like, thank you and good night.
Yeah. Thank you, please. This is mine. Leave us alone. So in the middle of their discussion, Micah's stomach growls and Ziggy realizes that he has to feed this person that has teleported with him to this new place. Like, oh yeah, like I have to water my plants to keep them alive, right?
My bad.
So they beam to a nearby market outpost on another planet to get some food. So as they make their way to a food stall, Micah almost gets robbed and Ziggy cuts off the pickpocket's hand like it's no big deal. And Micah's just like, ooh, where's a fan? Which is just such a weird reaction.
Okay, Micah has the weirdest reactions. Like, later, they just demolish a whole spaceship of beings, and Micah is just not worried.
He's just like, my
Ziggy,
hero.
My hero.
Yeah.
I want to talk about them eating.
Yeah.
So they eat these things that Ziggy equates to calamari, but he uses a Latin name. And I Googled the Latin name immediately because that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
And it's penile tissue. So they just eat dicks up in here.
Yeah.
And that made me laugh really hard.
I think we learned that when they go to the next planet on their assignment, because they call it like squid penis or something like that, whatever it is. And I was just like, oh, yeah, that tracks.
It's super. And that's just a really good example of like, this book is not subtle.
No, it's not subtle. It's very camp. And like, it's worth calling out here that even though the book does a good job of like explaining what's happening, it doesn't do a good job of describing what's happening in terms of like scene setting. So like we get a little bit of description of Stellaria, but like that's it. We don't get hardly any description of the council chambers or Ziggy's house or this marketplace or like any of the other settings that we go through. It's very sparse in here. And so you're left to your own devices to kind of figure out what you think it looks like.
Well, and even like other beings. So they go to the Council of Stellarians, which you described. They look like stardust and tentacles. But that's it. Are they all just in like people bodies? Like, because it's just not explained. Like, they're not like clusters of stars sitting around.
Yeah, I think Micah said offhandedly that they're all in different like alien forms. So like some of them have body snatched and they're all in armor, but so it's kind of hard to see, like you can't see their faces at all. So it was hard for him to read the situation, but like that's it. Like we don't get more information than that, right? So it is kind of fuzzy. Like this book kind of like is towing the line that it's happening in a white room kind of for me.
Me too.
And on the other side of that, there's a lot of like internal monologuing, spiraling, which we'll get to. Like whenever I say that like somebody tells us something internally, usually that's over a couple of pages at least. And so I wish there was just a little bit more of a balance between like that internal spiraling and external like grounding us in what's actually happening.
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful. It does the thing that if you read too closely, it's like they go into stasis for a while and nothing is happening while they're both just thinking, which is not what's happening. But it feels like everything is happening in a vacuum and they're just staring at each other in silence for this whole book. Until they have
exactly. Until the next time that they're having sex. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as they eat, Ziggy gets a summons on his cube from the council and his stomach sinks because he thought that he would have had more time with Micah. He assumes that the summons is to send him on another mission. The assumption here is that Micah would be either kept behind to be studied or sent elsewhere to do different things. Micah almost admits that he could de-tether himself from Ziggy's cube pretty easily, but Ziggy stops him by saying he'll handle it. The underlying kind of subtext here that I got was that like Ziggy is no longer really concerned whether he's tethered to his cube or not. He just doesn't want to be separated from Micah.
Yeah, that's what I expected too. Or that's how I read it as well.
So they go back to Zig's place to sleep, but neither of them actually can. Ziggy ends up going to Micah in the middle of the night because he's so horny and he can't stop thinking about Micah. And Micah invites him to bed to talk about it. Micah ends up admitting that he can't sleep because he didn't get to jerk off like he usually does before bed. And this prompts Ziggy to help him out with his mouth. Less wound. So the scene was good because they started to get into like the power dynamic in which like Ziggy is very much like the driver. I just wish this was a little bit longer, I guess.
I wished it was longer too, especially for the first time that we get this physical connection.
I wouldn't even say that it was particularly graphic.
No. Like, and it gets more graphic later, but I will say after this scene, I was a little disappointed and I was like, is it all going to be like this? Like, it was very short. It was very brief. It was very like perfunctory almost, which was kind of how they built it up because Micah was like, I don't want you to give me a sympathy handy. And Ziggy's like, it's not sympathy. I want to do it. But then it felt very like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Go to sleep now.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I did the thing that makes you go to sleep, so you should do that now.
Yeah, which is kind of what Ziggy's internal monologue is. So it felt weird. And I was not a fan for it to be their first sexual encounter, but it's fine.
Same. But it does improve. So I'm not salty about it. Right. The next day at the council meeting, Ziggy is super riled up and protective over Micah, not least because he's finally like been with him biblically. But this gets to the point that one of the council members tells Ziggy to like chill the fuck out because like they're going to be sent to the same place on the next mission together. And it turns out this is when we learn that Ziggy told the council that he and Micah are mated. So his defensiveness is kind of expected by the council members and he's not reprimanded for it.
Yeah. The council members feel almost amused by it. They're like, oh, you sweet summer child. We know you're going to be together.
Right. And Ziggy knows that they're kind of testing both of them, not just to see what Micah's powers can do, but because it's not typically understood that their kind can have a mated bond with like alien species, like humans or superhumans.
Which was a fun twist.
So before they leave the chamber, the head council dude encourages Ziggy to make the most of his mate and have kids, which is such a weird choice. Like,
it was a weird choice. And then we get this weird mental spiral that I didn't need, where Ziggy had to be like, but then I'm going to have to put on a female skin and like have to do this whole thing. And I was like, I didn't need that.
I didn't need that. Also, like, can that happen?
I don't know, because
like,
he talks about how Stellarians mate, and I feel like later we kind of get into this breeding kink, but like, can they even make kids? And if it's so uncommon for a Stellarian to mate with a non-Stellarian, do you know that can work?
Right. Like, is there any precedence for this before? Because we know that the failed mission person mated with, I think, 2 soups.
Yeah.
And like, we just drive right past whether that was
successful
or
because then does it make another, because the whole, like, we don't get a lot about any of these races, but the whole Stellarian thing seems to be like create more and be strong and do the thing. But if you mate with an alien race, do you even get a Stellarian, or do you get something else? It's weird that
you get a weird half-breed.
Yeah, the little we know about this race, the Stellarians, it feels like they wouldn't take this in stride so easily.
Yeah, or they would put more boundaries or like parameters on like whatever this test is that they're running.
Yeah, instead of just, okay, we're gonna go lock you in a space pod together and see if one of you comes back pregnant, I guess.
Essentially, yeah.
It's so weird.
But also, like, I don't even know if they, like, Stellarians get pregnant based on what Ziggy tells us later. It's very weird. But this is neither here nor there. We don't get answers to these questions yet.
Nope.
Anyway. So back at the ranch, Ziggy's house, they get ready to leave for their mission. And they plan to arrive on this new planet via spaceship to help them blend into the culture rather than starbeaming, like, right there. Because that would be weird if they just showed up. But the spaceship only has one sleeping bay, because Zig's really more of a lone wolf type. And so Micah is very excited about this.
Well, and this is where we get the Manic Pixie Dream Girl of Micah, where, like, he walks into the spaceship, sees the single sleeping bay, and is like, ooh, one bed trope, or something like that. And I'm like, okay. I'm feeling the same way, but, like, I don't say it out loud.
I didn't need the super meta, like, asides to the camera.
No, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But it's
also
fine.
Like, you can manipulate inorganic matter. You could make another sleeping pod, dude.
That's a really good point.
Whatever.
It's fine.
Anyway, as they check out the ship, Micah asks to see Ziggy's true form because he can, like, sense the tentacles around Ziggy. So Ziggy pulls back this glamour that he uses to hide them in. Micah finds the slightly shape-shifting tentacles fascinating, which is a relief to Ziggy, who was convinced that Micah would run screaming.
This is one of those things that I just don't think too hard about, but I can't stop who I am. So he is in his David Bowie skin suit, but he's, like, hovering above, like, legitimately a puppet master. Like, he is up here puppet mastering this body, but he's also physically in the body. It was weird. Like, why are the tentacles outside the body? I don't know.
I pictured it as like a Dr. Octopus situation, because the puppet master thing didn't really make sense to me, but I pictured them, like, coming out of the back of, like, his human vessel.
That's how I pictured it too, but I know, because I read it a couple times. It's described where Mike is like, I know you're up here, and, like, says that. I'm like, nope, don't like that.
Nope, don't like that at all. So then Ziggy shows Micah his skin suit library and pulls out the form that he'll be using on this particular mission. Micah is really excited by the idea of having a physically changing lover and voices that out loud, but Ziggy takes it as Micah being a fuckboy, which, like, I can totally understand that. And Micah quickly clears up that he wants Ziggy in whatever form Ziggy is in, because he wants who Ziggy is. It does, like, the physical form is just a plus to him.
Because he can play.
Yeah. Which, for me, feels like the first time that Micah is telling Ziggy, like, hey, I like you. I like you. Can we do this more often? And Ziggy's still like, he hates me. And I'm like, well, okay.
He just wants to be with all of the aliens, not me.
Not me. It's not a real bond.
It's so ridiculous.
So then we get an oral scene where Ziggy refuses to let Micah see his dick in part of their power play, which I thought was interesting. And I'm also like, what? You must have shit peripheral vision, dude.
Okay, I was thinking about that too. Like, oh, okay. I'm trying to figure out how to describe. If you've ever been in that position, right? So say you're like on your knees looking up, you can't really see like anything above like their waist anyway, because that's not how heads bend.
Right.
So like
Exactly.
he sees something.
Yeah, maybe not in detail, but there's no way he doesn't see anything.
Right. But I was okay with the power play.
I was definitely okay with the power play, but beyond the specifics of like what he does and or does not see, but it was a good scene.
Yeah.
And this one was much more specific and felt much less perfunctory.
Yes. And we get it. I think, do we get this one from, I don't know whose perspective we get it from.
We get it from Micah's.
We get it from Micah's, but we do get to see how much they both enjoy it, which makes things better. There was something I wanted to talk about, and I don't know when we get it, but Micah likes to refer to Ziggy as Space Daddy. Mm-hmm. And then they get into this like baby girl talk. I do not like baby girl.
No.
As a nickname. And I think this is going to sound so shitty, and like you are the one editing this. You have to decide if you're going to cut it out. I think I really don't like it because Micah's male and the baby girl just feels like super condescending almost. Like, I don't know. I would rather you call him princess, honestly.
Yeah, I don't really understand like baby girl from a slang perspective either.
No, and we get the like Micah schools us on what baby girl means, and it didn't make sense to me.
No, it didn't make sense to me in context of why they use it either. So I'm with you. I don't like it either. But I also don't like that Ziggy calls Micah straight up sunshine. Like, yeah, I get it. We're doing the sunshine and grumpy cat thing, but like, you don't, it's a little on the nose for me.
It's very on the nose. And that's this book, again, going back to that meta thing. Micah even describes Ziggy as being like a black cat in a golden retriever body. And I'm like, we don't have to talk in tropes, guys.
No, also that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I promise I liked this book.
I promise I like this book too. It's just I'm being critical because that's who we are.
Exactly. That's what we're here for, guys.
Yeah. So afterward, both of them are spiraling about how much they both liked being with each other. Ziggy in particular is reacting to how erratic his feelings for Micah make him act, almost like they're mated for real, but he says that's impossible, despite the fact that we got information earlier in the book that it's not. And this is one of those things where it's like, you told me this thing and you're willfully ignoring it and you're not giving me a good reason why.
Yeah, I didn't like that. If you just didn't tell me any backstory, then fine, I could go with the impossibility.
Right, because I don't really remember, and frankly, it doesn't matter if the other Stellarium that he's talking about was mated to Supes or Earthlings or a different alien race. It doesn't matter because he says to us internally, like, he's not sure that Stellarians can mate with other non-Stellarians. So it's like, it doesn't really matter what the race is of these other mates. Like, you told me that happened. You told me there's two of them in this other mate situation with the Stellarian. So like, what about your situation makes you think that it's impossible for you and Micah?
Right. And also, like, your council, like, they didn't
fully believed it.
Yeah, they were like, cool, sounds great, go make a baby.
No follow-up questions. Yeah.
So
it just felt like, okay, why are we still in denial here?
I know. And like, if you want to go with the denial, go with the he can't possibly like me for me denial, which would still be annoying, but
right. Or like, man, it really sucks that I'm fated to somebody who can't feel the same for me.
Exactly.
But anyway, regardless, back in the cockpit of the spaceship, they keep talking about how Ziggy's acting weird. So Micah decides to show Ziggy that he is not defenseless. He's implanted a nanochip into, I think it's his arm, to ensure that he always has inorganic material on hand. And he uses this to create a shield that Ziggy can't penetrate. And they go through this exercise of Ziggy trying to penetrate it, and Ziggy gets real fucking frustrated really quick. So Micah drops the shield because it's clear that Ziggy is unraveling, and he suggests that, hey, Zig, it might make things better if you claimed me, because I've heard that helps sometimes. And Ziggy's like, make fucking excuse me?
You
What
said
did you
what?
say to me? You said what now? What are you? Who told you about that? Who taught you that word?
Who taught you that word? Micah brings up the feeling of you are too nonchalant about the things you are suggesting.
I need you to be a little bit more chalant about this.
And I feel like that's how Ziggy feels too. Like, excuse me?
Right.
I do not know. I do not think you know what that word means.
Yeah. This is one of those examples of behavior, though, that if we didn't get the mixed point of views, this would be a really problematic scene because Ziggy like loses his shit about this.
Yeah. It would be, if we only got this from Micah's point of view, I would be terrified of Ziggy and I would not be into this book.
Right. Or even if we just got it from Ziggy's point of view and like knew what he was doing and what he was feeling, like I need Micah to tell me that he's still into it.
Yeah. And that he's okay with it and he's not afraid. He's not threatened. He's not intimidated.
Right.
He's not in pain.
He's still a cool cucumber. Like everything's cool.
Yeah. It's a very good use of the dual POV.
Yeah. So before they can explore this idea of claiming further, they are attacked by space pirates because of course they are.
Because of course they are.
What would be a sci-fi romance novel without space pirates? These aren't the sexy kind, though. They are spiders, and that's kind of gross to Micah.
It's gross to me too.
Yeah, it's so gross to Micah that he's like, I don't know if I have the jurisdiction here, but veto on that meat suit.
Yep.
So Ziggy goes outside of their ship in his true form to engage them in battle, while Micah mans the guns. Stellarians are essentially star matter, like I mentioned, and then they're kind of in the shape of galaxies with their spiral arms. Those are the tentacles that Micah saw earlier. And this is the form in which Ziggy totally dismantles their attackers. As Micah watches, he tells us about his brother and his brother's lover, who essentially discovered that they shared an Inventus bond, which is that superhuman version of a mating bond that I mentioned. And Micah reveals to us that he feels like that's what's forming between he and Ziggy, even if Ziggy doesn't feel it, which is just so patently false, but like, fine, whatever.
They both believe this thing that's not true.
Yeah, like willfully believing this thing that's not true. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
So Micah tells us that this is why or how he's justifying getting close to Ziggy, because as a scientist, he wants to learn all he can about the Inventus bond. Again, for science or whatever. And he literally says for science several times in his asides for the remainder of the book.
And he says it like to Ziggy as well. Like, we need to do this for science.
Right.
Which
I appreciate.
I felt called out. I say for science a lot.
I know, but that's one of the things that I liked about Micah is that he did that tongue-in-cheek thing like externally, like it made the asides internally less annoying almost.
Yeah, because his internal voice was who he was, like his incessant curiosity. It made him more endearing and it tilted more to that side. And I really liked seeing Micah from Ziggy's perspective, because the parts that would make me kind of swoon when Ziggy would say things like, my human is so weird. He's so cute. And I'm like, oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah. Because who hasn't had that feeling about their partner? Like, my dude is so weird. And I love him so much.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, I feel that.
Yeah. So once the threat is annihilated, they go to the bedroom to finish the sexual tension that they had started. And it's an intense scene. There's definitely good communication, which is necessary because there's a lot of role play where Ziggy is taking what he wants from a helpless, quote unquote, Micah. And this scene is specific. It's really fucking hot. But during this scene, Ziggy calls Micah his mate, and Micah tells Ziggy that he's never been with anyone else. One of those things is a lie.
They both think they're lying. One of them is actively lying. I didn't like that he lied.
I didn't either, but I did like that he addressed it immediately so it didn't become this like thing.
Yeah, that made me feel better because I was like, man, that's a rough lie to. And I get it. It worked in the power play dynamic too. Like I understand why he did it, and then I'm glad he came clean.
Yeah. I also appreciate that, like, it's not true, right? Like, yes, he's been with other people sexually, but like he said, it was 1.5. And arguably, he hasn't been with somebody in a relationship. So I feel like, I don't know. They do talk about this. And so I'm glad that they did.
Yeah. And the fully, like, I'm giving myself to you, like, to claim was true. You are
Correct.
the first to claim me in this way.
Yeah. So Micah falls asleep afterward, and Ziggy hard spirals for like 10 pages about what he just did and how it's impossible for them to be mates. And I'm like, my dude.
Well, we also get the Micah clocking it and being like, oh, it's just pillow talk. And Ziggy being like, I can't believe I said that. I can never say that again. He doesn't love me. He could never love me. He like stands against the wall. Like he like yeets himself out of bed.
Yeah.
Just stand in the corner like a creep while he spirals.
Right. And like, to be fair, Micah's like dozing or whatever. So he's not fully awake to see this, but I'm just picturing the scene in my head and I'm like, you're so fucking awkward.
Right. Like he's like pressed against the wall of the sleeping pod.
Like, you have to get a handle on yourself, dude. This is not okay.
This is not okay.
So he's telling himself that it's impossible for them to be mates, but his feelings are telling him that Micah is his mate. So he compares it to how mating bonds usually worked for Stellarians, which is a very impersonal and focused on reproduction situation. So the fact that he can't reproduce with Micah and the fact that he feels this obsession about him is confusing because that's very atypical for Stellarian bonds as a whole.
The polar opposite.
Yeah. His thoughts are interrupted by a message from HQ, which also wakes up Micah. And Ziggy tells Micah that their mission has changed from retrieving one traitorous Stellarian to a whole unit, which will be tricky because there's 9 Stellarians in a unit and there's only 2 of them. Cool.
No big deal.
So then Micah confesses to Ziggy that he's been with other people and he just said it in the moment because he thought that's what Ziggy wanted to hear. And Ziggy takes that as an opportunity to agree that happens, effectively copping out of the mate comment.
Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you what you want to hear, buddy.
Yeah. Micah admits to us internally that he's never slept so well as he did after Ziggy fucked his brains out. Beyond the physical exhaustion, Ziggy's physical presence settles Micah like nothing else. And he tells us that usually his brain is so active that he doesn't get much sleep. He's an insomniac. So this is like a good thing, a good change for him.
This is a nice, happy change. And they both say that about each other, that like their physical presence calms them down.
Yeah. And I really like when relationships in books are described like that because I think that's such a healthy dynamic.
Yes. And I'm here for all like the obsession and other weird things because I think they are inherently healthy and that makes me much happier to read this book.
Right, exactly. Like do you with kinks, and if you're both consenting adults, fine, love that for you. They just seem like they have a very healthy obsession with each other.
And I love that.
Yeah. So when they wake up, Ziggy gets into his Zenidian?
I read it as Xenidian, but I had to read it that way to sound it out. So I read it that way the first time, and then I read it as Xenon every time after.
Yeah, he said Zoolander, Micah, in his internal monologue, and that's how I said it then also. So I appreciated that from Micah. But this,
I forgot about the Zoolander.
Zoolander, Xenidian, this is the alien race that is on this planet that they're going to for this mission, right? So Ziggy gets into his Zoolander meat suit, which is a big hulking bovine humanoid-esque figure with armored skin like a rhino. I pictured Minotaur milking maid farm, but with the skin of a rhino. Fully.
That's what I pictured. That's fully what I pictured. And there was an inner thought of Micah's that I was here for because he talks about how he's sad that there aren't handles, horns.
I know.
I still pictured him with horns, but I loved that aside.
Totally. So they're getting ready to like be on this planet, right? And Ziggy tells Micah that Micah will have to act as Ziggy's pet while on this planet. And Micah is like super into that, but also tells Ziggy that he made an implant for Micah's ear so that he can understand all of the languages that Ziggy can. And Ziggy immediately knows that the next time they're in front of the Astrum Council that Micah will know that Ziggy lied about Micah and Ziggy being mated. And he's like, awesome. No, I love that you will be able to understand everything.
Things. No. Cool.
I am so fucked. Shit. So when they land on this planet, they're greeted by a male named Baxnell, who welcomes Ziggy back to the planet. Obviously, Ziggy's name is not Ziggy. It doesn't matter what his name is.
Couldn't tell you.
Ziggy tells Baxnell that Micah is not for shares because pets sometimes are for shares on this planet, but he does have supplies that are for shares, so he's not completely empty-handed.
This is one of the things we started to learn more about Stellarians that I thought was interesting. So when they steal their meat suits, they also get all their meat suits memories. So like the body he's wearing is a person that Baxnell knows, and Ziggy has the memories to back that up.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting
cool.
too. I really like the premise of body snatching as long as I don't think about it too hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So Ziggy describes this planet to us internally as medieval and not very advanced, which is wild considering they have space travel. Like,
for real. And they have a whole council meeting about like how to make their water more. The watermill is the word. All I could think was aqueduct, and I'm like, that's not the right thing. But they have space travel, but you can't figure out how to make more effective watermills. Okay.
You're sitting over here trying to figure out like basic plumbing aqueducts, and you can hop from planet to planet. Like what? I had to not think about that too hard because that was a wild juxtaposition.
It was crazy to me.
Boxnell tells Ziggy that he'll organize a welcome party in the village, and before he leaves, he also tells him that there's been a lot of new faces showing up in the western part of the village, and that may result in trouble eventually. At the welcome party, Ziggy is reminded how much he dislikes this planet. For one, nobody has the concept of personal space, and they are, like we mentioned, very technologically stunted. So they talk about water wheel technology, despite the fact that he just showed up in a spaceship, and that was totally cool.
That was fine. That happens.
Yeah. But Ziggy uses this conversation as an opportunity to suss out who in the group might be another Stellarian incognito. And like, I had questions about this because I'm like, how do you not know? Like, because the thing we haven't really talked about is that his tentacles, his like spiral army things, have like senses. So he like frequently uses them to, he describes it as taste the air around Micah to like pick up on his emotions and like his like where his head's at essentially. And so I'm like, how do your tentacles not also pick up on like when there's another Stellarian in the room?
Yeah, I didn't fully understand that either. I had to tell myself that it was just because he was so obsessed with Micah that all his tentacles were only thinking about Micah.
Yeah, I had to tell myself that it was like part of their cloaking mechanism. Like if they're ambush predators, they're easily they can hide themselves from the like the people whose bodies they're inhabiting, but they can also hide themselves from each other, I guess.
That's a much better explanation. We just don't get that. But that's a great reason.
It's a great reason, right? But like he doesn't tell us that. He's just like, I have no idea how I'm just like, well, how? That
like,
seems
but also
wild.
you do this. What?
Yeah. So anyway, that was wild. But they do get kind of a lock on somebody that they think might be a little suspect. But then, of course, at the end of the night, people just start fucking their pets. And now it's cue the public sex act scene.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So in this scene, Micah willingly gets on his knees and sucks off Ziggy. And they both get so wrapped up in this moment that the dude that they suspected of being a Stellarian like slips out of this party unnoticed.
Which is also wild because this guy was sitting directly next to Ziggy, and like, I get that you're caught up in the moment, but like he was sitting right next to you.
Right. Well, but that's the thing because like you're sitting right next to you and your tentacles are cloaked, but not not there. They're corporeal. So like, how do your tentacles not like brush up against the other tentacle?
Like tentacle handsies.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Maybe he just
Maybe
straight
they're
up.
just straight up in the air, so it
Just
doesn't
so that
bump
they
into
don't-
things.
I don't know. That's a really good question. Because they
I
are
don't know.
corporeal.
My other question was like, do they always have to be corporeal, or can they turn into like stardust mist?
I think they can, because when Ziggy first lets Micah touch them, Micah first describes it as being like light as air, and then it became denser. So I think he can kind of change
Yeah.
it. Also, like they were spikes that one time, and then he blunted them. So I think he kind of can change their density. But again, it was very, here's this one line, do with it what you will.
Yeah, very that. So after this, both Zig and Micah blame themselves for letting this other potential Stellarian get away. And Ziggy takes Micah's anxiety as regret about what happened between them sexually. But Micah tells him, quote, "I'm brat-coded, dude," end quote, implying that there's very little Micah wouldn't be into being forced to do.
And he kind of wants to be forced. Okay, every time Micah said dude, I really liked it, because it was so
Yeah.
counter to the Manic Pixie Dream energy that we get all the other times, that when he gets serious and he's like, come on, dude, I'm like, I just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I totally got behind that.
I'm brat coded, dude.
Dude.
It's like,
Let's be
please
serious.
force me. Let's go.
So Ziggy gives into their mutual desire to roleplay and chases Micah through the outskirts of the primitive town. When he catches him, he fucks him on the ground until they both finish. And then they go directly from that to the camp of the newcomers that Braxnell mentioned.
Okay, so this scene was where I think I might have learned something, and I feel stupid. Okay, so they obviously have sex.
Is it the plug?
Yeah, it's the plug.
Yeah.
It's the plug. Is that okay? So they do the thing, and then they like stand up, and Ziggy's like, "All right, bro, we gotta go." And Micah says, "I'm kind of leaking, dude." Ziggy's like, "Well, plug it up," and so he just like creates a butt plug. And my notes literally go, "Is that what a butt plug is for?" I mean, that makes sense, but I always thought it was like a toy, not like a reverse plunger for later.
No, I totally, I'm with you. I learned that too. I was like, oh no, that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Not an avid backdoor user myself. I had never had a need for that, so that was what I learned today, and I can go home now.
And I can go home now. But I had to write it in my notes, and I was just like, is that? I mean, okay. But they have this fun conversation here where Mike is like, bro, have you never heard of aftercare? And Ziggy clearly is like, after what?
Excuse me? What?
He's like,
You
we
need
gotta
something from me?
go. And Mike is like, we're gonna work on that. Cool. Let me create this plug in my butt, and we'll just go about our merry way, I guess.
Right. Ziggy's very much like, we have a mission. We're on the mission. We're doing the mission right now.
And Mike is like, okay, but
Okay, cool.
the thing is,
But I also appreciated that, like, he didn't, I know that this is like, I don't know. I appreciate that he didn't like spiral about the lack of aftercare, because that's also not the book that I wanted to read, especially because these two are just fucking around. Like, please don't get in your feelings about this.
exactly. So I liked kind of the nod to it, but it not becoming its own big thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Also, you are on a mission. He's not going to cuddle you on the forest floor right now. You got shit to do. Maybe you shouldn't have started this whole role play if you weren't ready for that.
Totally. Totally.
It's not the time. But you know how I like a chase scene, so I was here for this whole thing.
Oh God, I was so here for this whole thing. Yeah, it was really fucking hot.
It was really, and they got into like the consensual non-consent a little bit, and the
Yes.
language of like make it hurt, which like no one's actually in pain, so like I'm kind of here for that.
Right.
Pet
and they
play.
and I love how when Micah was sprinting away, he just yelled over his shoulder, "My safe word is stormtrooper."
I forgot about that. I love loved that.
Oh my God, it was so good. So like I said, they go directly from fucking into this camp of the newcomers that they suspect are Stellarians. And that's kind of intentional because they're playing a bit, right? Ziggy knows that these are defectors, and he easily overpowers one of them, who seems to be the commander. But a ninth member of their group sneaks around and grabs Micah without Ziggy noticing and teleports away with Micah as Ziggy watches on in horror. So essentially, the Stellarian uses their cube to star hop with Micah without Micah's consent, and obviously trying to get back at Ziggy. But kind of mid-star hop, Micah takes matters into his own hands, and this is one good illustration of how Micah's not helpless, because he kills the Stellarian absconding with him, like mid-star hop, in the middle of the ether, I guess. And he feels this tug back towards Ziggy in his stomach, and he follows that back to the planet that he was beamed away from.
Which is a very helpful facet of the mating bond or the cube link, whatever it was. But I really like that this came up to show again, like, I'm not helpless. Like, despite how bonkers my inner monologue can be and playing the baby girl role and all those things, like, he is a superhuman. So
yeah.
And he's not
just
worried
fine.
about murder. He is so here for the murder hobo that his mate is.
Totally. He thought no additional thoughts about killing the Stellarian. He was just like, okay, well, we were pretending, and now I guess we have to do some business, so I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and we had learned earlier how hard it is to kill a Stellarian, so the fact that he was able to do it is also very impressive.
Yes, exactly. So when he gets back to the clearing where he left Ziggy, Ziggy has slaughtered the Stellarians in camp, except for the one that's trapped in like the cube's tractor beam situation. And Mike is like, whoa, okay, looks like you have shit handled here. That's cool. But the one remaining Stellarian trapped in the tractor beam tells Ziggy that Ziggy and Micah are mated. And when Ziggy asks how this person knows, the Stellarian just says, I just know. Super fucking helpful.
Bro, what?
So because Ziggy feels bad for slaughtering everybody at camp, because that's not what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get these defectors and like bring them alive back to Stellarian, because it goes against their like code to kill Stellarians. That was not on the brief. It was how he reacted when they stole Micah.
Yep.
So because he feels bad for that, and I think because this other Stellarian doesn't feel like he's going to retaliate in any way, Ziggy lets this Stellarian go. And then he and Micah go back to his ship, and they start the journey back to Stellarian for an audience with the Astrum Command. But of course, on the way, they fuck a lot. We don't see this. We're just told this, which is a little unfortunate, but...
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, because I wanted that, like, okay, we're about to accept that we're mates, Akatar thing of, like, we have to do this. It's insatiable. Show me all of it.
Yeah, show me all of it. So they're just constantly in bed, ships on autopilot, totally cool. But in one of these interludes, they pass a rest stop for partying and entertainment, and Mike is like, oh, we should go there to blow off some steam. And they'd agreed to go and have a contest to see who can hold their liquor better. Cool.
Seems like a miserable way to spend your evening, but okay.
But okay, sure.
Also blow off some steam. I think you've been blowing off steam, guys.
What do you think this is doing? But I think it was really like Micah needed a break. He's like, my ass needs a break. So can we do something else?
Just like, I love you, but I need to heal my body.
Yes.
Thank you.
So they go to this rest stop, and once inside, they basically people watch mostly. Ziggy shares that he has a bodysuit from a species of alien that is born in pairs and remain physically connected despite being two different individuals. And we get like no follow-up on like how these individuals are connected in pairs, but they're described as being furry and having like a Japanese emoji face. And I'm like, I have about 17 more questions.
I had so many more questions, because if he has a bodysuit, is the other pair still like sentient, or does he just have like a floppity half when he embodies it, or does he split it? I have so many questions. Also, are they paired like they like each other, or are they siblings? And then how did they reproduce? I needed more information.
Totally. Yeah. And I wonder, because this is I think one of the triggers in there was like essentially like boat two Ziggy's fucking Micah. So I think maybe we might get to see that, but I haven't read that far, so maybe we don't.
I hope we do.
Mike is entranced by that idea, so I hope we do too.
Same.
So as they're having a good time, they're approached by someone who asks how much they cost for sex. And Micah briefly entertains the idea, but ultimately declines the offer. When the stranger walks away, Micah tells Ziggy that this person was a Stellarian. And Ziggy is amazed that Micah can see the Stellarian tentacles of others because he can't, like we've mentioned. So they decide to follow the stranger and figure out if they might be worth a bounty so they don't return to the Astrum Force completely empty-handed. But that is where we're going to end our coverage of part 1. So you'll have to join us in 2 weeks to figure out how that goes.
This book is so fun.
It really is fun. Like, it's not deep. It's not asking a lot. And like, I wish there was more description of like the settings, but like, I'm still having a great time.
Yeah, I'm having a great time, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. I mean, we're halfway done, so TBD, but like, I'm not opposed to reading the second one if it keeps going this way.
Yeah, totally. All right, friends, we did it. Those are our thoughts on part 1 of Earth Boys Are Easy by C. Rochelle. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this journey. Let us know what you thought. You can find us on the socials at Spice Traders Pod on TikTok and Goodreads. And if you want more, consider joining us on Patreon, where we release episodes on our off weeks. And that's also where we continue our series. And if you really, really like us, drop us a review wherever you listen. But until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.